Welcome to everyone on our panel this week, starting with Michael Bird, former president of the American Public Health Association, our friend Tom Garrity of the Garrity Public Relations Group, and Martha Burke, political psychologist and author of the book Your Voice, Your Vote, The Savvy Woman's Guide to Politics, Power, and the Change We Need. Thank you all for being here. Now, Budget Talk has moved into the spotlight ahead of the start of the session, and it seems both the governor and the legislature have similar priorities. Public health, education, economic development, and public safety are all in for a boost if either of these plans pass. And wrapped up in almost all these items are pay raises for public employees, whether it be teachers, police, firefighters. So let's start there. Given the stresses of the pandemic, Michael, is it about time to give these folks some extra compensation?
How far back do you want to go?
Right.
In terms of addressing this lack of investment?
That's a very good point. You got to make up to get to par. That's right.
Right.
I didn't mean to cut you up there. Go ahead with your point. My fault.
Well, no, I mean, because when I look at it from any lens here in New Mexico, be it education, be it public safety, be it public health, which I'm familiar with not only locally but nationally, is there has not been the kind of investment. We do, in fact, not have a public health system in this country that's viable because there's not been that investment. We do, in fact, do not have a healthcare system in this nation, and COVID has demonstrated that. We also lack equity in terms of for communities of color, be they Native communities, be they Hispanic communities, Mexican American communities, or African American communities, because we know who's been bearing the burden of this virus. And it is our communities which have always been at risk. There's never been a normal. It's always been abnormal for us. And this is just highlighting that. And now other communities are beginning to experience some of the pain that we've been dealing with historically for quite some time. Right. So if you do not invest in infrastructure, if you do not invest in your people, this is what happens when you don't. So it's high time we invest.
That's a good point. Martha, speaking of investment, let's look at education and these proposals. The governor and the legislature finance committee call for nearly $4 billion boost to public ed and nearly $1 billion towards higher ed. A big chunk of the money for public ed would go towards teacher pay increases, as we've all heard about in the news here. The idea being this would attract and retain educators. Is that a viable plan going in?
Well, I think it is sort of viable, Gene. The idea, or what they're putting forward, is they want to be competitive with Texas, which they will be because Texas legislature is not meeting this year. So their salaries right now are in the $44,000-45,000 range. And the proposal here is for $50,000. The question is that enough money to cause you to cross a border, uproot your life, and come up to Mexico?
Right.
Me, I would, because Texas is my native state, but there's a lot not to like. However, I want to talk a little bit more about that teacher pay raise, and my lens is a gender lens. Most of the public educators in the state and nationally are women. Women do not make the money men make in most fields. They probably do in education, but it's still very low. So if we can raise women up, we can raise families up. And I think that's very important as far as the education salaries and the minimum wage. We have the proposal to raise the state workers, the minimum to $15 an hour. That is, the state is no exception. The majority of minimum wage workers are female across the board. And I want to talk about one more thing in the budget that is very important, and that's the early childhood education. Why? Because how many women have had to stay home during COVID, quit a job because there's no child care?
Right.
There's no childhood ed. And if we had that, women could go back to work. Naturally, it helps the kids. It gives them a head start. There's a reason that program is named Head Start. And so it's a win-win for everybody. In terms of competing proposals, I don't think they're that far apart.
They really aren't. They really aren't. And, you know, in the teacher pay thing, Tom, you know, the LFC wants $51,000 to start The governor's offers 50,000. It's not much of a difference. But interesting points there from Martha. We've got over 1,000 teacher vacancies statewide. It has to be money, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We've seen the big quit or the great resignation take hold in the private sector as well as the public sector. So, really increasing salaries. And I would say that 7% is nice, but it's not quite enough. Maybe 10% for teachers, 7% for all other school personnel. I think that the public sector needs to actually get up to speed with trying to make jobs more competitive from a financial perspective. Yes, they have the great retirement programs and such, but I think that really hitting that the teacher pay raises at this point and pay raises for all educators is a good first step. The other thing that I like that I'm seeing is what I'm seeing in the economic development arena. And just by quick disclosure, my firm does work in the economic development arena. And so with that said, my thoughts are my own, but what I've been able to see is a lot of success with the local economic development funding. And so if I think that if we're able to see that the funds can be used to attract out-of-state companies, but also more importantly, to really support those companies who are already here to help them grow, maybe help them just to get one more job, to put them in a position to provide funding to hire one more person at a competitive wage. I think that could do a lot to really increase New Mexico's competitiveness.
Michael, another issue, of course, crime. I mentioned it's going to be big on the docket for everybody starting here on the 18th. However, same issue. Is it a money problem? The governor wants to spend to attract more folks to public safety, investments for cops, all kinds of things. Is it just a money issue, or are we having something else afoot here?
First of all, I just want to pick up on Martha's gender point,
please.
And if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
And one is that the majority of healthcare providers are women, be it nurses or in many of the other fields, and more women doctors. So that's another area where there is a real need to emphasize and focus on women and supporting them in whatever ways we can.
Yep.
In terms of it's pretty clear that I think that we do need more to be more supportive of public safety and police and that arena. But again, I think the thing is we need to be looking at what are the causes for the crime, what are and those really are more upstream than downstream in terms of what's really driving the crime rate. And at least from my understanding, a big part of it is drugs and poverty and folks who don't have education and the means to make a living. And it really goes back to the family of origin, in my experience, where you either have you have functional children, have functional families that produce then functional children who can read, write, and seeking employment and want to be productive, versus those families that have been impacted in a negative and adverse way that leads them on a course that is in fact, I think they more tend to abuse drugs, alcohol, and then engage in criminal activity. And so I think that that's a piece of it, but that you have to emphasize more in the way of prevention and more in looking at what do we need to strengthen families and communities.
Martha, anytime you see big spending numbers like you see here, you can expect some backlash from conservative leadership. That is the case here after these two Democratic-led budget proposals. House Minority Leader James Townsend, you probably read in the Journal, said he'd like to see the surplus used for more tax breaks for seniors and veterans instead of spending. Is there a legitimate concern here of the proposed $1 billion general fund increase? Is too much too fast?
No. For the first time in a long time, the money is there, Gene. And, when conservatives say tax breaks, to me, the red flag goes up. I don't think the elderly veterans are the concern. I think it's the corporations and the very wealthy already. That's historically been the position. It is probably at the core let's front it with the elderly and veterans, but really we need tax breaks for the corporations. I do want to say real quickly on the police or the police officer raises. I did look up where we are in terms of competing with our border states, and we're pretty far behind. We're 34th nationally. Colorado to our north is 8th in salary. They have not quite double, a quarter more than we do, but
Wow.
almost. Texas is ahead of us, Arizona. The only one not is Oklahoma, and that's that little bitty border at the
Right.
Oklahoma. But so we're behind our neighbors as well, and I think we could lose some good officers if we don't do something about
I appreciate
that.
you saying that because that is happening. It's a difficulty. Tom, do you have a point there, if you could?
Yeah, just briefly to add on to the public safety discussion. Yes, we definitely need to, provide more support for law enforcement officers as far as from the financial perspective. And I really appreciate what Michael was sharing about, the behavioral health, making sure that we address that. But the third element that I think really needs to be funded, that the last two governors have not funded appropriately, has been the courts and justice system. If you need to be able to complete the system, and without funding the courts and justice, all you're doing is providing pay raises, which is a good and needed thing, but it's not completing the cycle and fixing the issues.
Good point there. Lawmakers will hear the governor's priorities for the budget and the rest of 2022 during her State of the State address, kicking off the session on Tuesday. You can catch a live stream of her speech on the NMPBS website or on our air next Wednesday at 4 p.m.